Hi, my name is Seth Corson with JP Case Middle School, and this video is to show my students and anyone else who wants to learn how to take a SketchUp file and turn it into a 360-degree YouTube video. Now, a lot of you have noticed that on YouTube lately, there are many videos that offer you a kind of surround virtual reality point of view, in particular when you use a Google Cardboard to view them. And with an Android phone, any YouTube video that supports 360 can go split screen. iPhone users, your phone doesn't do that. Borrow someone's Android phone to try that with a cardboard. But it still gives you a nice experience, even with an iPad or an iPhone, because you can hold your phone up like a window into the world, and as you move it around, it shows you different perspectives. Now, what I figured out how to do is take a SketchUp file that my students have created and turn that into a YouTube video. Essentially, we're using YouTube as the player or the viewer for this SketchUp file. And there's a few steps to it, a little bit complex, but let me show you how I did it. The first thing you need to do, you need to download three different things. One of them is the Twilight Hobby Edition. Twilight is a SketchUp extension or an add-in for SketchUp. Another program I'm using is called FFmpeg, FFmpeg, and that is a free video converter. It's a little bit tricky to use, but I'll show you the exact commands you need to make that work. And then lastly, you need something called the 360 video metadata tool. And if you search for that one, if you search on 360 YouTube videos, oops, spelled videos wrong, it'll correct that for me. You can figure out here under the help section. If you can find your way here, this is the official Google website. They have here the metadata app. FFmpeg you'll get by simply going to ffmpeg.org and downloading the appropriate one. And for those of you that haven't used command line prompts, get ready to learn a little bit about that. And the first one I had there, Twilight Render 2. You can find that as well. So all three programs are free. Twilight wasn't really set up to do what we're going to use it for, but it works quite well for it. Here's the process. In SketchUp, what I had my students do was design an arena where the position camera and clicking on the origin would take you down to a preview of what we're going to export. And the reason we used the origin to do that is because we can always get back to the same place easily, and so you can have repeatability from your virtual point of view here. So again, from out here it looks a little bit kind of like a wacky scene, but I can click camera, position camera, and get right back down to that exact spot because I've used the origin as my marker. Now, I've installed already the Twilight Render kit, and so here you can see I've got it under Extensions. I'm going to click Render, and there are two options you should set up. One of them is set your resolution to 4K. In this case, I'm using 3840 by 2160. That seems to work pretty well, and that is, if you go back into the YouTube specifications, that is what YouTube recommends. And let me go back here to under the camera drop down. You've got to set this to spherical. It starts out as SketchUp view, but we want a spherical camera view. And I'm going to, for the sake of time, put it on a lower, well, let's just do medium quality and hit play. But I'd recommend that you do the highest quality you can. It takes usually less than a minute to run, depending on the speed of your computer, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. And what you can see here being built is a flat image that represents what would wrap around you if you were standing there. So it's kind of hard to visualize here what this is going to turn into, but you can see it looked like SketchUp, except everything's a little bit warped. Now, I've created this. You next have to save it. And you can save this where you want and call it what you want. I'm going to put it on my desktop for now just to make things easy. So this is my Sketchup virtual reality project. And close out of that. We're done in SketchUp. Here's my JPEG. Now, we are on to, we've used the Twilight Render plugin to save us a 360-degree view. We are on to the next program, FFmpeg, and that's used to convert a JPEG into a video. Now, if you have a video editor that supports 4K resolution, you might be able to use that and do some additional things like crossfades between scenes or adding music. But none of the video editors I have at the moment support 4K, and so I found this program for free. And so here's what we're going to do. FFmpeg is a program that doesn't really install, but it just kind of exists in a folder. And within the folder, when you've downloaded this, there's the prompt, which is what we're going to use in a second, but there's also this bin folder. And into the bin folder, you should put your JPEG. Now, to make things even easier here, because I'm going to have to be typing this in, I'm just going to change this. I'm going to make this name shorter. Let's just call it vr.jpg. And if we look at this again, you can tell what this JPEG looks like. It is a snapshot of all angles, basically, from SketchUp within one flat file. Now, what comes next is, let me go back out to the root of my FFmpeg folder, and I'm going to click on ffprompt.bat, and here's your command prompt. And it took some tinkering to figure this out, but here's the command line prompt that works for me, and I'll put it up on the screen, and let's put this over here, split screen. So start out with ffmpeg, and then dash loop, and I'm typing here what's in black, space 1, dash lowercase I, and then I put this in red because this changes depending on what your file is called. Mine was called vr.jpg, space, dash T, and T is time. So 120 would give you 120 seconds or a 2-minute video. You could play with making that shorter or longer depending what you want to do. I'm going to go with the 2-minute video. Space, dash PIX underscore FMT space YUV 420p. I'm not exactly sure what that part does, but I know it needs it to work, because without it, it doesn't. I think it has to do with the color scheme, like the types of how the colors are encoded. But anyway, just put it in there and it'll work. And then, of course, your output file. So let's call this, I'm going to call it vr.mp4. We're going for an mp4 file. That is what YouTube will handle best. Hit enter to go. You get all this good gibberish. Don't worry about it. You don't need to understand it. You just need to let it process. And of course, the longer your video, the longer this will take. And this is also highly dependent on the speed of your computer. Okay, and it finished. It took quite a little while to do that, so I cut the video out. But now that it's processed, we are ready to take a look at that video file. Let me minimize these and go into my bin folder. Remember, that's where we dropped our JPEG, and so that is where the MP4 exists. And if you look at the JPEG and then look at the MP4, they should be the same, except for the fact that the MP4 is, in this case, a 2-minute video file of that JPEG. And what I like about FFmpeg, aside from the fact that it's free, is whatever resolution, let's go fit to screen, whatever resolution you started out with your JPEG is what your video file ends up with. So you don't lose any quality doing this. And that's important because things do kind of get shrunk a little bit to fit into this, to fit the whole scene into one image. So you want a high resolution. You could do this in 8K resolution as well, but I found that 8K videos on YouTube don't always stream very well. So 4K is sufficient for now. Now, last tool in my little bag of tricks here is the 360 metadata injector. And if you open this, this looks like a little tiny program that honestly it doesn't look like Google or YouTube even created this. It looks like they're just referencing something else that somebody else created, but we'll go with it. You're gonna hit open, and you got to find that the MP4 that you just created. Here it is, and let it know it's spherical because that's what we're doing. It is a spherical shot, and then save as, and it wants to save it with the word injected after it. That's okay. If you want to go with that, go for it. If you wanted to change that, you could, but I'm going to leave that be. Now, these two video files seem identical. They have the same file size. They are essentially the same movie, but if you upload this one to YouTube, it will look warped and stretched, and if you upload this one to YouTube, it should work. So let's try it. Out to YouTube I go. Final step, I'm going to go upload here. And let's just take that injected file and upload it. Now, one thing that kind of stumped me the first time I did this is, and it does mention it on Google's 360 help page, is that even once it's done processing, sometimes the video does not appear as the 360 navigation for a little while. So one of the videos I did, it took like over 10 minutes, and I thought I'd done something wrong, but in reality, it was just it hadn't processed it as a 360 video yet. So when I went back and checked back later, all of a sudden it was working. So that's it. Those are the steps. I'll put once again up on the screen the tools that I use, the command that you use to convert it. A little bit intensive here, but the end result, if I flip back to this one, is a Sketchup file that uses YouTube as its viewer. And if you have any questions, my name is Seth Corson, and my email address, sethcorson@gmail.com or scorson@frsd.us. Thank you. Have a great day.